Hello Year 5 and welcome to Thursday Science lesson. We're going to be finding out today a little bit more about plants, particularly the life cycle of plants and the process of pollination. We're going to understand the importance of insects in that process of pollination and to know that pollen is produced by flowers and is the key to this process of pollination. We're also going to look at different roles, parts of the flower. So, how does pollination work? Well, pollination is the transfer, the movement of pollen from one plant to another. So, if we've got here in this little sort of comic strip-like image, in the first image, the bright colours and smell of that flower tell me that it's got the sugary nectar, so the sugary goodness I love to eat, and the pollen I feed to my kids. Yummy! In number 2. Om nom 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 nom. While eating at this flower, some of the pollen has rubbed off on me by accident. And in part 3, at this other flower, the pollen from the first flower will fertilise the egg cells to make seeds. So as we've got a little kind of close-up here, what's going on? The pollen enters the flower and the egg cells are fertilised by the pollen and they grow into seeds. So the process of reproduction, that making a copy, can happen. It's not only insects that pollinate the plants, that move that pollen from one flower to another similar flower. Birds, bats, and the wind can also take the pollen from one plant to another. Okay, so we've got those images there to help you remember that pollination can happen through different means in different ways. Now let's look at parts of the flower. Okay, so we have here the petal. It's the petal's job to attract the insects towards the flower. So if you remember with the bee, it was attracted by the bright colours and the sugary sweetness. However, the colours that we see are not the same as the colours that the insects see. Insects see in what we call ultraviolet, which is a type of light outside the range of what human eyes can see. Okay, so it's like a very kind of intense type of colour that the insects can see. We have the style, so look carefully at what the arrow is pointing to. The style is above the ovary and its job is to hold up the stigma. We'll find out what those are in a moment. The style, ovary and stigma all make up the female part of the flower, which is called the carpel or pistil. Okay, so that's the style. We have the stigma. Okay, so it's this bit here at the top. The stigma's job is to collect the pollen from other plants when insects brush by it. It has adapted to catch the pollen in different ways. So, for example, some stigma have like tiny hairs on them in order to attract and collect the pollen. And it's on the stigma that the growing process first begins. We have the filament, which is further down here. It's the filament's role to hold up the anther. If the anther was very low down, then insects might not be able to collect that flower's pollen. Okay, so the filament holds up the anther. That anther produces the pollen. Okay, so the filament holds up that anther, but the anther produces that pollen. It is important that the pollen is then carried to another plant. Okay, so I showed you in that first kind of like comic strip image series that the pollen is taken to another plant of a similar kind by either by insect, could be by the wind, birds, bats. Okay, and in that process it's called pollination, and it's there that allows the reproduction to take place. The ovary, it's the ovary's job to hold the ovules and to keep them safe until the flower gets pollinated. So the ovary there is towards the base, towards the kind of stem there. Right then, so what I'd like you to do, you've got an image here of a plant, and I'd like you please to label each part using the images on the PowerPoint slides to help you. Please feel free to go back in the video and to pause at various points to refresh your memory or to go over something if you haven't quite understood. The yellow chili challenge, same thing. However, you've also got to describe how the process of pollination works. So the cartoon strip image at the beginning can help you with that. Red chili challenge, same again, but you could also try to find out in your own research what else is deliberately yellow to make it stand out. Why is yellow the easiest colour to spot? And if you could prove this with an investigation, so a little bit more independent kind of research. Okay, so pause the video now to complete. Fantastic, Year 5, very well done indeed. Well, here on the screen you have the correct labels for the different parts of the plant. Hopefully you've got those correct. If not to worry, just make a correction on your sheet or in your workbook. And as a final recap for today's learning, let's have a little look at pollination facts. So your task, I would like you to fill in the gaps here by completing the sentences. So what is produced by flowers and can be collected by insects? So I will pause the video now and I'd like you to write down those sentences and fill in the gaps using what we've learned from today's lesson. Okay, let's go through the answers. So the first one, it is pollen that's produced by flowers and can be collected by insects. Very well done if you got that correct. The job of the stigma is to collect pollen from other plants. Good. The job of the stamen is to... Good. It's the male part of the plant. The job of the filament is to hold up the anther. Good. The job of the style is to hold up the stigma. The job of the anther is to produce the pollen. And the job of the ovary is to hold and protect the ovules or ovules. Very well done, Year 5, for all your hard work today. And I look forward to seeing you again for next lesson. Goodbye.